I am going to speak to understanding the roles of watershed management plans or integrated watershed management plans in municipal planning. And you're going to see in the bottom corner Clearwater County. I actually prepared this presentation and modified it. I actually prepared it for the earlier conference that David was talking about, and I modified it a little bit for today. So I want to recognize, Clearwater. And what we're going to be doing in the presentation is I want to outline the municipal planning framework to you, relate the roles of watershed management plans, WMPs, in municipal planning, and then address a little bit about expectations. So that's what I'll be doing. I'm going to try to rattle through the earlier parts fairly quickly and maybe concentrate on some of the ending parts. So just to give a little bit of a picture here of the watersheds in Alberta and Clearwater County, as you can see, has a relatively unique situation in that, in fact, it has the headwaters for two major basins in North Saskatchewan and part of the South Saskatchewan. The Red Deer Basin, where I come from, always is kind of saying, well, we're a basin on our own because we free flow to Saskatchewan on our own, but we are part of the South Saskatchewan Basin. So Clearwater does have the headwaters for two major basins, so they have somewhat of a unique situation within the province, although there are other municipalities that do share. And Clearwater has taken a very active role in the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance and the Red Deer River Watershed Alliance, and as well they do local stewardship. So I know I'm speaking to the informed here, but you're all well aware of the interrelationships between water and land, and the need therefore to manage water and to manage land in a coordinated fashion. I remember about 8 or 9 years ago, Tracy Scott telling me that the river is a report card of the watershed. I know he got that quote from somewhere else, but that really is the picture. If we study the main stems of the rivers, whether it's the North Saskatchewan or the Red Deer or whatever, they are a report card for how we're dealing with the watershed, from how we're managing land and how we're impacting water. And in turn, as we're finding out in Alberta this week, how water in fact impacts the land itself. So there is that strong relationship. So we have to look at the rivers, whether it's the main stem or major tributaries, and that helps to measure how we're doing in managing our watershed. So there's the basic land use planning framework for the province of Alberta, the bottom right-hand corner. As most of you are aware, municipalities are mandated when they're over size, I think it's 2,500 people, that they have to have a municipal development plan to direct and guide land use change and development within the municipality. And I'll speak more about that in just a bit. So that's under the Municipal Government Act, and most municipalities in the province have to have a municipal development plan. Then in the bottom left-hand corner, we have watershed management plans that are one of the key roles of watershed planning and advisory councils is to prepare WMPs to provide for the management of the watershed and to meet the three major main goals of the Water for Life strategy. Over and above that, now in the part of the Athabasca and in future major regions in the province, we're going to have the regional plans that are under the purview of the province of Alberta. They're directed by the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, and they will provide an integration of provincial policies at regional levels, throughout the entire province. They'll set out regulations for land use objectives and directions, and they'll provide a context for encouraging municipalities to deal with land use in a municipal framework, particularly, of course, private or deeded lands. The key thing here is the white and black lines. The white lines actually regulate and guide. So in other words, the regional plans provide guides or encouragement to municipalities, but in fact they can regulate certain things that will happen within regions or watersheds. The converse is true for the other plans, even though all are interrelated very closely. The watershed management plans and the municipal development plans, they basically guide or advise each other, and they in turn can guide and advise what can be contained in the regional plans, but they cannot regulate or prescribe. So Municipal development plans, of course, can regulate or prescribe what happens within their municipalities, but they can't dictate or say what happens with watershed management plans or in the regional plan. And we'll talk about that more just a little bit later. So the Municipal Land Use Planning Framework for MDPs, the Municipal Government Act indicates that there's 7 things that municipal development plans shall or must address. And very quickly, not surprisingly, the future use of land and how that land is developed within the municipalities, the coordination of land uses not only within a municipality, but among adjacent municipalities, including their growth patterns and their infrastructure, primarily roads and common services like water and sewer. The provision of transportation systems, primarily within a municipality, but again connecting with adjoining municipalities. The provision of municipal services and facilities, the subdivision and development policies, and here we really get into the implementation portions of a policy section of a municipal development plan, where it does provide the specific guidance for the subdivision and development of lands within a municipality. And then municipal development plans are also directed to provide for municipal, school, or municipal and school reserves, as well as the protection of agricultural lands. So those are the shall provisions that all municipal development plans have to address. And if you take a look at those provisions, all of them in many regards impact water, the need for water, or they directly impact water and its use and its quality. So it's very important in relationship to watershed management plans. Now, the next slide says what municipal plans may address. And I always find this curious because, and I guess it was talked about a little bit earlier about, conservation authorities and having or must have to do certain things. But these things may be addressed in a municipal plan. Environmental matters, which a lot of you around here today are sitting and talking about and thinking about, but it's a may clause. Economic development and social matters as well. If you take a look at the context of most municipal development plans, you see they certainly do address environmental considerations in relationship to certain policy sectors, also at the economic sector and to a minor extent social matters. But I'm always curious why it's not a shall address these types of things, unless they're concerned, the province is concerned that it's going to go too far or overlap with other jurisdictions, something like that. But as you can see, these key things here, environmental, economic, and social matters, are really the 3 pegs of the footstool of sustainable development. And it's still curious that it's just a may clause within the municipal planning framework. Just really quickly to give you the context of municipal development plans, I'll just quickly run through what the Clearwater MDP basically states. So, and this is not really unique. Maybe some of the wording is a little bit different, but most municipal development plans will address these things that I'm just going to quickly run through. A purpose, which is really to plan and manage growth within the context of the environmental, social, and economic considerations of the municipality. Then it expresses a vision about diverse residential opportunities, maintaining a respect for the environment, and I think the emphasis there is maintain, but there's always been that respect, and it has to continue into the future. And then also a diverse, sustainable economy. So again, you see the 3 legs of the footstool of sustainable development. Residential living, social aspects, environmental aspects, and economic aspects. Particularly Clearwater County, when I prepared the municipal development plan, the county council and administration directed that the plan has to really address environmental matters in the form of natural capital. And so it has a series of policies with regards to the conservation, stewardship, and management of agricultural lands, of woodlands and forest lands. It addresses surface water and groundwater conservation. It also addresses the maintenance and restoration of riparian buffers and wetlands, and there's a whole series of policies related to the various types of environmentally significant areas that are within Clearwater County. The plan itself also goes on to address watershed management plans, and it actually says that the county shall participate in the preparation and then the implementation of watershed management plans. And then when a watershed management plan is available, that the county will review and revise their MDP where applicable and appropriate to assist the implementation of the watershed management plan through the application of the MDP itself. So we'll come back a little bit later with that subclause that says revise where applicable and appropriate. We'll talk about that in relationship to the roles of watershed management plans and municipal planning, which is the next slide. So watershed management plans to me have roles throughout the whole process. Obviously, a fair number of municipal development plans have been prepared without watershed management plans, but also as watershed management plans themselves were being prepared. And so the information, the discussions, the debate, the collaboration that has come forward under the WMP processes has been very, very meaningful to municipalities in the preparation of their own municipal development plans. That certainly was the case in the Clearwater County, that we had a lot of background information available from the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance with regards to the headwaters of the North Saskatchewan that very much assisted in the preparation of the Clearwater Municipal Development Plan. And then obviously once the WMP is available itself, that the contents, the directions, the goals, the objectives, the indicators, the targets, the strategies, the actions are all highly relevant to each municipality within that watershed with regards to the content and directions and potentially revisions to their own municipal development plans. So there's 4 roles, I think, of watershed management plans and municipal planning and the preparation of municipal development plans. To promote awareness, to provide knowledge and understanding, to promote improvement to municipal plans, and then also to help guide actions. And I'll address those each very quickly. With regards to awareness, the process and watershed management plans themselves do provide awareness. They provide the larger context and interrelationships of a municipality with other parts of the watershed itself. So how the municipality, its resources, and its activities fit in and influence the broader basin. It helps to clarify local issues and the interests of the larger basin in some of the issues and activities of that particular municipality. So it does provide a connection, it provides a context, it provides interrelationships. It explains some similarities and differences, and it also helps to explain some of the impacts of the activities of one municipality and its management of land use on other municipalities in the watershed. It also provides issues and concerns. They're not always alike. Certainly one concern is water quality. That's common throughout the whole watershed basin, but there may be differences in opinions with some issues and concerns, i.e., for example, access to gravel, etc., in stream aquifers and stuff like that. That could be, if you have no gravel, you might have a different interest than a municipality that has lots of gravel. So there are different concerns that you have to look at and consider across the entire basin. With regards to knowledge and understanding, I've said that a little bit earlier, but the process in preparing watershed management plans actually goes far beyond what many municipal development plans do, maybe with the exception of the larger centers like Edmonton and Calgary that have vast resources available to them. But the information that comes forward out of the watershed management plans for municipalities, such as information on water quantity and quality, health of the region, point sources for pollution, the importance of wetlands and riparian areas, the effects of various operations on various parts of the basin, etc. And the ideas, the goals that are stated in watershed management plans and the desired achievements or objectives. And again, some of the targets are important, but even also what they can learn from collaboration and partnerships. What you learn in the watershed can be applied very much in the local municipal sphere with regards to municipal planning. And of course there are challenges. What obstacles are there to achieve the watershed management goals and objectives in relationship to also the municipal? There's various views, there's various priorities. There's different tasks that each municipality has. Clearwater, for example, can be very unlike Strathcona County in some of its interests and needs. Okay, also the roles of watershed management plans in municipal planning, improvement. Once the plan, the watershed management plan is in place, it can very much help test and refine the policies of the municipal development plan itself. So now that the North Saskatchewan Watershed Management Plan is available, Clearwater County should be reviewing their MDP, saying, do we align with this? Do we align well with it? Is there ways that we need to improve the plan? How do we help, in fact, measure the outcomes of our own plan in relationship to some of the targets and desired achievements of the watershed management plan? How can we make these things, fit together? So that's very important to have that broader view for the whole watershed and how that fits within the municipality and what they're achieving for themselves and to help the watershed achieve, for the entire watershed purposes. And then finally, with regards to roles, certainly with regards to actions and decisions, a lot of the policies or directions or strategies in the watershed management plans can help direct particular decisions with regards to development and zoning and the implementation of the municipal development plan itself. There may be a stronger emphasis more on wetland conservation and preservation that has arisen through the watershed management plans coming to the municipal level because that might be a high priority of the watershed. One of many, many examples that we could use. Okay, just very quickly to compare some of the roles and expectations. And this is, I've been there, done that. I've sat on the Red Deer River Watershed Alliance for a number of years. Issues came forward with regards to specific matters within the basin. Two very important concerns that were raised was sending Red Deer River water down to the Bow River Basin for their use. And secondly was gravel operations in the aquifers. And people expect the watershed management plan or the watershed alliance to have the say and the final say in certain things. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Both the Bow and the North Saskatchewan state it right. The Bow Basin Watershed Management Plan's purpose says is to provide guidance and recommendations to decision-making authorities, municipalities, etc., etc. The Watershed Management Plan is not a regulatory instrument. The same, the next slide, with the North Saskatchewan, you've got it right. It serves as advice to the Government of Alberta and all watershed stakeholders to guide future decision-making in the respective areas of responsibility. I think I read something this morning under your strategic plan. It is to provide information and advice. Provide information and advice. That's the primary role. Or roles. And then the next, very particularly with regards to municipalities, is that municipalities are to use the recommendations in the WMP to guide their preparation and implementation of their statutory plans. So this reflects what I said earlier in that one chart about the regional plans, the WMPs and the MDPs. Those two, they guide each other. They guide each other. And weighing interests, the next slide. So as I found out both as a planner and sitting on the Watershed Alliance for Red Deer, that often an interest group will come forward with a particular interest or set of interests. They have a particular interest. But you've got to remember, and a lot of municipal representatives here, but those that aren't municipalities, that a municipality has countless interest groups. Countless. When you got a population of 10,000 to 50,000 to 200,000, you've got various interests. And no one interest basically trumps the other. There are many different interests to consider and to try to balance as a municipality. And one of those interests is what is stated in a watershed management plan. So you have to weigh interests. An interest group shall not or should not assume that its interest is going to be the dominant factor in decision making. The same thing with a WPAC. You cannot assume that your plan, the WMP, is going to be the dominant factor in municipal decision making. It's going to be important, it's going to be weighed and considered, and it could trump various other aspects of a plan, but it is not always going to be the dominant factor. It's there to guide. And the reality is there's always going to be tensions between plans and organizations, and you have to work together to build consensus and to collaborate. The key thing is that there are parallels between WMPs and municipal development plans. The yes side is that they should and must be have an environmental scope and an economic scope and a social scope. The no side is they can't only represent environmental side or the economic side or the social side. They have to reflect and try to pursue all three in a balance. And that balance will come forward, over time as municipalities work with the watershed councils, your alliance and your plan to seek the best for that municipality and the watershed as a whole. So thank you very much.